Hello and welcome to Seen and Heard, the podcast from the Somerville Journal Scene. I am reporter Eon Bailey. Absent today is publisher and managing editor Brandon Roberts. He will be back on the next episode. The first story we're going to get into from the May 7th issue is the DD2 Town Hall that was held a few weeks ago. Questions covered facilities, bullying, DEI. Specifically, we had parents concerned about whether the tennis courts at the Somerville High School would be ready by next school year. There were questions about student IDs and safety. There were questions about bullying and questions about the elimination of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. If that piques your interest, it's on the front page. Also, if you are a parent of a DD2 kid, or you are a DD2 kid yourself, I would really recommend going to these town halls. The board members seemed very receptive while they were there. They answered questions pretty thoroughly. In attendance were members Jim Lee, Ashley Wimberly, Kelly Bates, Cynthia Powell, and Annie King. And they were all taking questions together. So if you are invested in DD2, please go to the town hall meetings. Our next story is from an economic presentation at the Chamber of Commerce Forecast Breakfast that was on Tuesday, April 29th. I can't say it any better than Brandon Roberts can write it. So here is straight from the article what's going on. In a time of economic turbulence and headline-fueled anxiety, economist Steve Slifer offered a calming voice Tuesday, April 29th at the Economic Forecast Breakfast hosted by the Greater Somerville Dorchester County Chamber of Commerce and presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina. "Don't freak out," Slifer told the crowd at Middleton Place, setting the tone for a presentation that balanced optimism with realism. So basically, he says that although inflation is definitely a challenge, trade policy causing some anxieties, and artificial intelligence being a little disruptive, there are still indicators like consumer spending, the housing market, and employment that are showing reasons to be optimistic rather than fearful. So I thought that was an interesting perspective. You don't really hear that a lot when we're talking about the economy. The ARC hosted its Dancing with the ARC Stars fundraiser, and that raises funds for families facing Alzheimer's and other dementias. So if you want to read more about that story starts on the front page as well. And so exciting, we have another Meet Your Public Servant story in this week's paper. Justin Farnsworth on the school board. He's a veteran and a school board member. If you want to learn more about his mission, growth in the district, and even the facilities in DD2, that is a good article for you to read. We have an Architect's Corner from Eric Epstein that's worth checking out. Also on that same page, and this is on A4, we have Craig Conover from Southern Charm promoting his new beverage at a Harris Teeter on Nexon Parkway. So that was kind of interesting. There were so many people lined up to go see him. There were photo ops. That was not even a whole story, just some pictures and a little cut line there. But if you want to see it, it's in your paper. The Somerville Museum has received a historic marker, and the public is actually invited to an unveiling and dedication ceremony of a state historic marker from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Monday, May 19th at the Somerville Museum and Research Center. That's 100 East Doty Avenue. So I hope to see some of you there. Somerville Dream also hosted an art and garden stroll on April 26th. And there are event highlights from that on page A5. One thing that was really special about that event is that Sculpture in the South was included. Sculpture in the South is the group that acquires, maintains, and promotes sculpture in the town of Somerville. And they do a lot of hard work, and so it was really cool to see them included in the art and garden stroll. I'm sure we'll continue to have stories involving both Somerville Dream and Sculpture in the South into the future. I had the wonderful opportunity to attend the Edisto Natchez Cuso powwow, which highlighted the resiliency and initiatives of different tribes across the state. So if you want to learn more about that group or the powwow, you can go to page A6. One thing that I want to point out that I think is very valuable to the community is that the Natchez Cuso offer a free clinic. So if you don't have insurance, you can still get service from them for healthcare. and it goes more in depth about that in the article, but many people don't know that that even exists. So I think that that's good to highlight. I also had the opportunity to go to the Traveling Troubadour Songwriters Round hosted at Public Works Arts Center. Some fantastic live music there and just a really touching event. You can tell that everybody involved really cares about creating positive spaces in the community for people to connect, especially over the arts. So if you're interested in the Traveling Troubadour Songwriters Round, that was on page A4. In the opinion section, there are 3 different letters to the editor. One is about school safety grants, another is about the Berlin G. Myers Parkway, and the third is about honoring historical figure and local icon Kitty Springs. You can check those out on page A7. There's also a Mother's Day column that's very touching by Brandon Roberts that's on the same page, and we have columns as well from Tom Purcell and Julie Smith. On page A8, you'll find Reflections on Milestone April. That is a guest column from Russ Touchberry. The column originally appeared in Talk of the Town, which is the town of Somerville's monthly email newsletter. Of course, I highly encourage you to follow the Journal Scene for all of your news needs, but I don't encourage you to follow only the Journal Scene. I think that there is some great information that the town's communications department puts out there. They're such a valuable resource. We value them. You should use them as a resource as well. So again, Talk of the Town is the town of Somerville's monthly email newsletter. I would recommend signing up for that. And if you want to read Mayor Touchberry's column, you can find that in this issue of the paper on page A8, or you can find it in that newsletter. On April 29th, there was a full-scale manhunt after a suspect fled from South Carolina Highway Patrol during a traffic stop in the Ponds neighborhood. So that is a crime story that you can read about on page A8. Looking ahead, there's a Memorial Day ceremony on May 26th. Dorchester County invites residents to join the annual Memorial Day ceremony at 10 a.m. Monday, May 26th, at the Dorchester County Human Services Building at 500 North Main Street in Somerville. And looking at sports, Pinewood advances in the baseball playoffs. Patriots snap losing streak to Green Wave. Ashley Ridge moves on to third round of playoffs. And Patriots surge into playoffs on 4-game win streak. Finally, on page A12, we've got must-read books from Sherry Stouch. She does a great job every single week, very passionate about books, sharing books, encouraging people to read books. So if you want her recommendations, those are on page A12. Some of her recommendations are The Storyteller by Brandon Hobson, My Friends by Frederick Backman, and Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. We had a quicker podcast this week. I appreciate you tuning in and listening, supporting the paper, and trusting us to deliver important information about the community. Next week's podcast will be a little lengthier. It will include input from Brandon Roberts, and it will be more of that full-length conversation you can kind of come to expect from Seen and Heard. However, thank you for bearing with me this week while I gave you the rundown, and I hope you tune in next week for our regularly scheduled episode. Thank you so much for listening to Seen and Heard, and have a great week.